Princess of the Springs. Contents. Chapter 1, page 6, Princess Ibera. Chapter 2, page 14, The Golden Palace. Chapter 3, page 19, In Prison. Chapter 4, page 35, The Lost Prince. Chapter 5, page 42, The Giant of the Rain. Princess Ibera. Once upon a time, when the world was young, the moon giant fell in love with the giantess who lived in the great river. He built her a palace made of shells and silver and sparkling gems. After a while, a baby girl was born to the moon giant and the giantess of the great river. Her eyes shone like the moon, and she was as strong as the river. They called her Ibera, the Princess of the Springs. She would rule over all the springs, rivers, and lakes in the land. Ibera grew up to be beautiful, clever, and wise. Her father lived in the night sky, and she lived with her mother in the silver and shell palace. She wanted to stay there forever, but the sun giant had seen the princess of the springs in the waters and of the rivers and streams as he crossed the sky every day. She was so beautiful that he fell in love with her. "Ah," he said, "that is the wife for me." He knocked on the door of the silver and shell palace and asked her to marry him. "Oh no," said Ibera, "I don't want to leave my mother." But the sun giant made up his mind, and being so strong and brave, he was used to getting his own way. Every day he asked Ibera to be his wife and live with him in his gold palace in the sky. Each time she said no, but each time he looked so sad that she began to care for him. "Yes, I will marry you and live in your gold palace in the sky," she said at last, "but only if for 3 months of every year I come home to my mother, the giantess of the great river and the shell palace." The gold palace. So the sun giant and Ibera, the princess of springs, were married. They went to live in the gold palace in the sky. They were happy together. The sun giant was kind and strong, but Ibera missed her mother. For 3 months each year, she went home, and for those 3 months, the great river and the other rivers and lakes shone and sparkled with joy. A baby son was born to Ibera and the sun giant. Ibera wanted to take him to the silver and shell palace and show him to the giantess of the great river. But the sun said that she must leave their son with him. "The prince must stay at home in the gold palace," he said. "He is too little to make the journey all the way down to the great river with you." Ibera was very sad. She loved her son and would miss him while she was gone, but she knew the sun giant would take care of him, and she agreed that the prince should stay at the gold palace. In prison, Ibera set off for the silver and shell palace, but when she arrived, her mother was not there. The princess ran to every room. She called, "Mother, where are you?" But there was no mother answer. The princess asked the fish in the great river if they had seen her mother. No, they answered, we haven't seen her. The princess asked the sands on the seashore if they had seen her mother. No, they answered, we haven't seen her. She asked the yellow shells on the seashore if they had seen her mother. As this giant of the wind, they said, if he goes everywhere and knows everything. The princess did not know what else to do. She went to the house of the giant of the wind. Do you know where my mother is? She asked him. The giant of the wind promised he would look for the giantess of the great river. He blew over the hills and the forest, and at last he came to the castle of the giant of the land. The giant of the wind blew into every crack of the castle. In the deep dungeon, he found Ibara's mother. The giant of the land had put the giantess in prison in the darkest part of his castle. He wanted to take the shell palace and the river for himself. The giant of the wind went back to his house. He told the princess that he had found her mother. He had put the princess on his back, and together they flew to the giant of the land's castle. Give me back my mother, said the princess of springs. No, said the giant of the land. She is mine now, and I will keep her. Then I will blow your house down, said the giant of the wind. He blew and he blew. All the doors crashed open, even the door of the deep dungeon. The giantess of the great river was very happy to see her daughter. She had not liked the dark dungeon and longed to be in the open air. Ibara led her mother outside and hugged her. The princess and the giantess of the great river thanked the giant of the wind for his help. They went back to the shell palace. They had been away for more than 3 months. The sun giant will not know where I am. He will miss me, said Ibara, and my son will miss me too. I must go home. The lost prince. The sun giant was very upset when the princess of springs did not come home after 3 months. Instead of looking for Ibara, he married another wife. The new wife was jealous of the little prince. She sent him away, out into the sky. But the cook felt sorry for the little prince. He saw how lost and lonely he was out in the clouds. The cook took the prince back to the palace and hid him in the kitchen. The prince played with the dogs and ate the scraps that the kind cook gave him. The little prince was so dirty that nobody knew who he was. When the princess of springs arrived back at the palace of the sun giant, she called out for her son. The little prince was not there. One of the palace servants began to cry and told the princess how the new wife had sent him away. Where is he? The princess asked. I don't know, said the poor servant. We must find him at once, said the princess, and she ran through the gardens and the palace, calling for her little boy. But it did no good. The princess was so sad that she went back to the great river to be with her mother. There she wept and wept and wept for 40 days. As she wept, her tears made the great river flood into the sea, and the sea rose so high that it covered the gold palace of the Sun Giant. For 40 days, the palace of the Sun Giant, and everyone inside, was covered by the sea. The Sun Giant could not shine on earth, and the land was dark. The Giant of the Rain. The prince was very sad too. He missed his mother, the Princess of the Springs, and didn't want to stay in the palace kitchen with just dogs and the cook for friends and scraps for food. He left the palace and set off to the clouds, where he began to cry. His tears washed his face clean, and it fell all the way down to earth. Ibra felt the tears dropping around her. She looked up and saw her son crying. She rushed up into the sky as fast as she could to bring him home. She picked the prince up and hugged him. He told her how kind the cook had hidden him, but how he missed her and was always hungry. Then the Princess of the Springs dried her tears, took the tight little prince by the hand, and went home to the Silver and Shell Palace and the Giantess of the Great River. There she stayed, and she didn't go back to the Sun Giant. The little prince grew up to be the Giant of the Rain. When rain falls on earth in the rainy season, it is him, dropping tears like he did when his mother was far away and he was sad and all alone. And the thirsty land welcomes the rain. The crops grow tall and strong, and the Princess of the Springs makes the rivers and lakes sparkle with joy.